You've openly said in the past that you think the U.S. is going to fumble the opportunity to be the leader, global leader in crypto. If we're looking at the leading countries of the world 5 years from now, who are they? Hey everyone, welcome to our Traded Black podcast. I am your host, Shad Dales. Thanks for checking in, talking crypto, talking cannabis today. Leave a comment below. Let us know. Crypto, man, it is actually performing well with these markets right now. So stay strong, long and strong. Cannabis, like I said last week, don't throw eggs at me. Tough times to say the least. And let's join in our two hosts, Anthony Verrill, millennial entrepreneur. Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's been a good week. It's been a headline filled day so far, and like you said, crypto's grown up. It's resilient now.
It really is. A commodity, might I add. A commodity. We'll get into that. But
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet. We're getting there.
All right. Nicely shaven. Look at the haircut on Benjamin A. Smith, lead financial writer. Hope you had a good weekend. Back here midweek. How are things?
Good. Did you miss the tan also? Miami,
you're looking,
Miami Beach.
You're looking quite bronze.
I am naturally that way, but I get a little bit more bronze. Miami Beach definitely helps, but other than that, doing well.
You're in Anthony's backyard. What's the highlight of Miami Beach?
Oh, it might have been the $160 drinks on the beach with the four of us, things like that. But it was quite a nice place. I'm actually very impressed with Miami Beach because everything is pristine, it's clean, feels safe. I love it down there.
Yeah. You get down to Miami Beach much? You're in Lauderdale area, right, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a membership at Soho House. I mean, we're down there a couple times a month.
Nice.
It's South Beach is great to go to.
All right. Well, before we get into, we want to top things off or start things off with crypto. All views of the Traded Black podcast, the guests on this podcast are purely the opinion. You should not treat any opinions expressed by us or guests as investment advice. And the views on this podcast are solely intended to be informational and are not investment advice. Okay, let's talk crypto. We begin, and I smell witch hunt with our first topic. The CFTC filed a lawsuit against Binance CEO CZ, the lawsuit for unregistered derivative products, as well as using VPNs to circumvent regulations. So first off, Anthony, what exactly does this mean as we dive more into this lawsuit?
I mean, I think it's mostly the CFTC wanting to become relevant, especially after we saw the SEC serve the Wells notice to Coinbase last week.
Yeah.
They kind of want to throw their hat in the ring. They kind of want to start to push the narrative on crypto regulation. A fact of the matter is, I mean, they kind of were, by definition, trading unregulated derivatives products. And then there is proof internally that they were pushing users and people inside the company to use VPNs to circumvent being within the jurisdiction of the United States. I mean, there's a couple things that are wrong here to unpack. What's a VPN really used for other than spoofing your IP address to go to an international setting? I mean, there are advertisements during the Super Bowl for VPNs. There is aggressive advertising around the products. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It goes into the ethos of the U.S. Stuff's great until you need to create a counterpoint and then use something to fall on the sword. VPNs now are happening to be that thing. The bright spot or the silver lining in this lawsuit is the CFTC are deeming Bitcoin and Ethereum commodities. So that's a small win within the lawsuit. But yeah, it's kind of just like poking the bear, wanting to get your hat in the game and be relevant. And if the SEC is going to go after Coinbase, there's not a better target than for the CFTC to go after Binance.
I see a big smirk on your face, Ben.
Well, I couldn't help but laugh when I saw the headlines here because to me it struck me as 100% witch hunt. Here you are, the CFTC, which for not even years, decades, literally decades, allowing the big banks, JP Morgan, prime amongst them, to do all this illegal activity. Like, when you see the futures at night crash $50 in the middle of the night or whatever, that's JP Morgan affecting an illiquid market. They've been doing this thing, and they periodically do get fined. Granted, it's not like they're totally scot-free, but for every $1 million that they get fined, they probably make $15-20 million in profits, and then the CFTC finally clamps down or whatever, right? So all this illegal activity has been happening for years. It's common knowledge. Just use Google if you don't believe me, and it's just like, now they're coming after Binance for a few thousand accounts with a VPN. It's like, it just strikes me as like, there's so many bigger fish to fry. And obviously, it strikes me as like Operation Choke Point or something, like where they're trying to go after a specific user and try to find anything that they can have on them to stick, instead of going after the real, egregious activities that go on in the actual commodity markets.
Yeah, I mean, what I would have liked to see accompanying the lawsuit, now that I think about it, is a framework as to how we can actually create regulations around these derivative products, or how the CFTC wants to mandate this, what these products are going to look like in a legal and a regulated environment. But we've yet to see anything like that as of now.
Is this just another example of traditional finance losing grip, but trying to control every outcome of every situation, but it's inevitable as to where this is going?
I don't think it's traditional. I don't think it's tradition. It's TradFi trying to be relevant. I think it's the CFTC as a governing body. They want to throw their hat in the ring. I mean, there's an internal turmoil right now with the U.S. government, as per the SEC and the CFTC, who's actually going to regulate crypto and who's going to be mandated into doing that. No one knows. No one's really taken pole position, or no one's really gotten any insights as to, yes, we're going to probably go with the way that you guys want to regulate and mandate it. You've got the SEC that wants to deem it a security. You've got the CFTC that wants to deem it a commodity. And now they've got two of the largest exchanges within their crosshairs.
Which is great.
I think it's great. We'll get into Coinbase obviously later in the show, but I think that CZ and Binance, they're probably going to go the way of Kraken. They're going to get a slap on the wrist. Here you go, pay this fine. And then hopefully let's develop a dialogue and let's start to create the conversation on how we're going to create a legal framework around the products that you want to sell to consumers.
Okay, question for you, Anthony. It's a bigger overarching narrative based on everything that's going on. Do you think regulators, no matter whether they're from the SEC or CFTC, do you think the government regulators are trying to throttle crypto and try to legislate it out of existence? A different topic of conversation is whether they can. That's something different. But do you think they're actually trying to get rid of crypto if they can?
No. So the reason why most crypto market participants want the CFTC to have oversight over crypto is the chairman sat before, I think, the Financial Services Committee and literally said verbatim, crypto is too big to fail. It's too big to trap. It's not going to go away. Consumers are going to use it. Consumers are going to get burned by it. Consumers are going to generate wealth with it. We just need to make sure that consumers have a safety, have guardrails in place, and have a framework to transact within. They don't care whether it's black or whether it's white. They just want to make sure that it's centered and that it's able to exist in a free and open market. So no, I mean, I'm actually very for the CFTC. Granted, whether he was telling the truth is yet to be determined. But the narrative that's coming out of the CFTC is pro-crypto and is a loose version of what the SEC would want to roll out, leading to not stifling innovation, but allowing it to flourish and allowing it to develop, versus a stranglehold on it and very restrictive regulations, which is what you would see if it's deemed a security and goes by the way of the SEC.
Interesting. So some of the conversations that you've had over the last week and a half, a couple CEOs, including Mark Yusko, said don't get so frustrated about whether or not you want to buy Bitcoin if it goes down 10,000 or up 10,000 at this entry point. But when we look at everything that you're talking about and where this is going to be 5-10 years from now, and even Mark Yusko indicating that we will see $1 million price tag on Bitcoin at one point. If you're new to the industry, as we've keep discussing, what are the first necessary steps that you have to do to get involved in the crypto space?
It's trial and error. It's trial and error. Open up a MetaMask account, open up a Coinbase account, transfer a little bit of money, like something that's negligible, $50, $60, $100. Buy crypto, transfer crypto, buy an NFT, hook it up to your bank account, and even get familiar with the fiat on-ramps to actually load money into the system. Then also, I guess, go the reverse way of actually getting fiat off-chain and selling it, and just trial and error and education. I mean, there's no book that I've read to learn what I've learned about on-chain environment, like the ecosystem. It's trial and error. It's if you want to learn how to use it and you want to use it, all of the resources are out there.
Mm-hmm. When we look at this lawsuit, how does this differ from the Wells notice that Coinbase received last week from the SEC?
So the Wells notice for Coinbase was actually pretty funny because, and it kind of goes back to the conversation that we just had around VPNs, like something's good until it's not.
Yeah.
Coinbase's S1, which had to get signed off on by the SEC to list on a public exchange in the United States, was signed off on. Their earn product was not deemed an unregulated security. None of the tokens on their exchange were deemed unregulated securities. As far as everything goes in that S1, Coinbase was compliant and was acting within the view of the law in a compliant nature. Now, when nothing fundamentally has changed within the company, the SEC now goes and serves them a Wells notice. And Brian Armstrong's first argument was, well, look at the S1. You guys approved this.
So why did they do it then? Why'd they do it then?
Because they've changed their sentiment. Nothing fundamental has changed. It's now within their best interest to go after crypto. I think this is all leading up to like rolling out CBDCs and rolling out a digital dollar and wanting control over the crypto ecosystem. I mean, the way that everything is moving with the regional banks and the stress on the financial sector, it's kind of setting the stage for digitizing everything. The Fed's got no room to run as far as printing money goes.
Yeah.
If they had a digital currency, all they need to do is basically add another zero somewhere on the ledger, and it's very easy to roll out. It's also very easy to track, and I think that's the way they're going. I mean, all of this kind of sets the stage for rolling out some sort of digital infrastructure at the Fed level and then also at the government level.
Okay, let me ask you this, and this goes back to what I was saying before about my question about do regulators want to regulate crypto out of existence? Because if the CBDCs do end up, coming into place of the fiat money system, then cryptos would be a direct threat to that, or a direct competitor to that. And you would think that most people would want to go with cryptos in that case, because then they would have more control of their own money. So looking, downstream, do you see crypto as being a threat to the central bank digital currencies that obviously that they want to implement for,
those central bank digital currencies, though, are going to have a settlement layer at some point. That settlement layer is either going to have to be Ethereum, it's going to have to be Ripple, or it's going to have to be some sort of L1 that's built and scaled by said sovereign nation. If you think that Ethereum is going to go by the way of SWIFT, which we use globally as a settlement layer for the fiat system, if the U.S. wants to ban crypto and not be part of that system being implemented or being part of that movement that China, Russia, the UK, Germany, if they don't want to be part of that innovation, which probably is going to be Web 3.0 and financial services 2.0, sure, they can ban it and fall behind the eight ball and stifle innovation, just like we've done plenty of other things. If they really want to harness the innovation and lead it and use the smartest minds in the world that are still coming from this country, then no, they shouldn't outlaw it. And I mean, I would welcome them to make some sort of framework as to how they're going to outlaw it, because you would have to basically enact totalitarian digital regulations over everything from the internet to VPNs to IP to completely shut it off. There's no website or URL that you go to buy Bitcoin. I mean, you can load up a wallet onto this thing and transact anonymously. There's no stopping that.
You've openly said in the past that you think the U.S. is going to fumble the opportunity to be the leader, global leader in crypto. If we're looking at the leading countries of the world 5 years from now, who are they?
As far as sophistication goes around like digital innovation,
embracing it.
I'd put China up there. Hong Kong has already taken huge steps to bring crypto into the national conversation and to leverage it to leverage the assets. I would say probably Germany and the UK would be there. And then, I mean, as much as I don't want to admit it, I would assume that Russia is working on stuff. And I mean, they're going to have something. But I mean, the US is we're not going to outlaw it. I mean, we're not going to cut off our nose despite our face as far as the crypto movement goes, despite everything that's really going on. And it's really good to sit here and pontificate on the doom and gloom that could be coming from the U.S. regulatory agencies. I mean, I really think it's kind of stress testing and like battle testing the assets right now. I mean, Bitcoin and Ethereum are strong, all things considered. They're getting fucking beaten from all angles right now. And they're pretty strong as far as price stability goes. If you would have told me that all these lawsuits were going to come out, FTX was going to happen, and then everything else that's compounded into it, and Ethereum was trading at $1,800 last week, I would have told you that you're lying.
Okay, Anthony, let me stop you there, because that's one of my biggest takeaways that I see in the market, that with everything going on, Coinbase, the SEC coming down on them, with CZ, everything, Bitcoin's still up about 40% or so, or maybe 45% off the lows. So it's been hanging in, even though it's down a few $100s today, it's been hanging in very, very well overall. So do you think we're getting to the point where Bitcoin can actually be sort of thought of as a store of value? Because traditionally it hasn't really. It's moved more along the lines with risk assets and equities. But is it gravitating to that point where now people are going to get into that when there's a contagion in the banking system?
I mean, I think people are waking up both on the retail level and on the institutional level. And I mean, but let's also be real. Bitcoin and Ethereum are much bigger than the U.S. consumer, and they're much bigger than the U.S. conversation. And that's proving out right now. Like the FUD around this and the lawsuits around it and the regulatory uncertainty, they both seem to be shrugging it off. Like the U.S. it's not the end all be all anymore. Like we like to think that, but that's not the case.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what we said before. People over 35, what's Bitcoin? What's Ethereum? People under 35, how much Bitcoin and Ethereum do you have in your portfolio? They want to disclose that. And a lot of their portfolio is allocated towards that, which are two assets that, seem like viable, long-term, great opportunities investment-wise. Based off of these announcements, real quick, how's the market performed? You'd mentioned a couple things, Ben, but Anthony, how has the market overall performed, even though these announcements have come out? Like, is this like just younger generations putting their middle finger up to like the older generation to say it doesn't matter? No. I mean, up until this morning, Bitcoin was up 38%, I think, over the last 3 weeks. Yeah, that's what I mean. And, like any bad news.
But the only narrative that was pushing that is the distrust and the illiquidity in the banking system in the United States. That ain't retail pushing it up. That's guys with serious money, and that's guys understanding that they need to allocate capital elsewhere to an asset to hedge against the dollar destruction that's ultimately going to happen when the Fed has to go print a shitload of money when the financial system needs a bailout again. It's smart money realizing I need to allocate a little bit to this asset class, and the proof's in the pudding. I mean, that is happening right now. And it's not being sold off with risk assets.
Yeah. Okay, let's shift to cannabis. Did you want to say something, Ben?
No, I was saying that's absolutely correct, and that's what I'm saying too. And maybe that's why it is going to turn into a store of value. That it's pretty obvious to anybody following the markets and the economy that when we go into recession, something's going to break, and the backstop is going to be to print money again, right? So where do you want to put your money? Do you want to hold U.S. dollars, or do you want to have it in different assets like commodities or Bitcoin? I think the market is speaking with showing you that Bitcoin's definitely a part of portfolios, and people want to get out of the U.S. dollar and into things like Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, what's scaring me too is if you looked at the Dallas Fed this morning, or I think it might have been the Michigan Fed, we're looking more towards like stagflation versus recession. And stagflation, there's nowhere to hide. So if we're going into a period of stagflation that's going to be prolonged, people are going to either go into gold or go into Bitcoin. There's nowhere else to go. You're fucked as far as capital appreciation and just value destruction goes. So those are the only two to hide. And I've got gold. I've got Bitcoin. I can assure you it's much easier to transport and to transact with Bitcoin than it is gold.
Yeah, a quick stat too that I'll throw out there that people should probably be paying attention to. I know it caught my attention was a stat that over the past 2 weeks, the central banks have printed or have added about 2/3 on their balance sheet of the money through that they've reduced through quantitative tightening. So, and that took about a year to play out. So in a year, the Fed had been trying to lower its balance sheet because it had increased its balance sheet all this time to support the economy and so forth. So it had been trying to draw it down so it can get into a better place. And ever since SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, went bankrupt and so forth, they've had to capitalize the banks. And it took them a year to draw it down almost $1 trillion or 800 million. And then within 2 weeks, 2/3 of that have been bought back up. So that just shows you where things are going. When there's a recession, when the economy gets in trouble, if there's another bank blow up, the Fed balance sheet's going to go way past previous highs, and that's what people I think are protecting. Right? They're buying Bitcoin because they know the balance sheet's going to blow up one way or the other.
Well said, gents. As I said earlier, let's shift to cannabis. Curaleaf. They announced that they pushed back their earnings report to next month. Ben, we'll start with you because this is your baby. If you're an investor, how do you read into that?
I wouldn't read too much into it. They're changing from IFRS to GAAP, from my understanding. So that takes some time because it's a more thorough source of accounting to get into GAAP, and they have been making the transition. So they have to look at the processes. They might have to get other consultants involved and to complete the process. So I wouldn't look at it on its face as being too concerned. I know sometimes when earnings are delayed, it can imply that there could be an accounting weakness or something like that. I don't think it's the case here. I think the recent weakness that you see in Curaleaf is just mimicking the other tier 1 MSOs, which have been dripping down to new lows, just simply because no other capital is really entering the sector right now. So I wouldn't be too worried about it. Earnings were supposed to be on March 28th.
Yeah.
Now they're going to be in April. There's no specific time, but I think it's just mainly just that. Investors shouldn't be worried.
So don't read too much into it.
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it without other supporting evidence. And I know they had just made the transition to GAAP, a quarter or 2 quarters ago, Anthony. Maybe you can elaborate on that.
I've got nothing to say to the matter. I mean, I'd sleep easy at night with my money in Curaleaf.
Okay.
They're not a slapdick operation. I mean, they're not. If anything, you look at the metrics. I mean, they're selling above board in like the top tier in every state they're in. I wouldn't read into it at all. I think Ben nailed it. I mean, moving from one accounting system to the other, there's obviously probably nuance and there's some quirks that they need to get flattened out. But I mean, keep dropping the price and it'll just be cheaper when I actually decide to buy it.
At what point are you going to buy again? Like, I know you.
I don't know. So I'm like, if you would have told me the prices right now the cannabis stocks are at a year ago, they'd be well under the prices that I said I would start buying. I'm still sitting on my hands, despite the market conditions, just because of what's going on in the macro.
Yeah.
Just because of what's going on in the geopolitical landscape and just what's going on with regulation. I'm sticking to my guns and I'm not fucking moving off my statement of I will miss the 20% rally to the upside on a safe banking announcement. I'm letting it happen first and then acting second because it's not going to be a faux rally when it does happen. But I will not do a single thing until there is a concrete signed announcement on SAFE or 280E or something that happens to loosen the financial conditions around this sector. I will watch the stocks keep dropping.
I wonder if this is not setting up sort of like the way it's set up with Canopy Growth. I think in the summer of 2018, if I'm not mistaken, the Canadian market was in a terrible bear market. Everything was dripping down, much like you see today. Canopy had been making new lows. Aurora, it was terrible. It lost like 30% that summer. And then in August, boom, all of a sudden we had the Constellation news investing into Canopy. No one heard about it. We had Bruce Linton on before to tell us that, they were in Ottawa doing private meetings. No one knew about it. And all of a sudden the sector just went on a tear for a couple months. So when Secretary Go ahead.
Oh, when there's an announcement, this sector is about to rip like crypto. Like these stocks are going to aggressively move.
Okay, so let me bring it back.
When that happens, though, is yet to be determined.
Yeah.
Well, our good friend Kev Marr loves the comments. Just thinks this industry is the biggest scam ever. But I look at it as, what's your thoughts to that?
I don't think he could be wrong. I think he's going to be proven. I think he's going to be proven wrong. But at the same time, like,
yeah,
I think there's a little bit of it. I think there's a valid argument there that could be made.
I don't want to bore people, but you talk about when there is an announcement, this industry will rip. What is that announcement? Safe banking approved?
That's all it is.
No, it won't be safe banking. It's going to be, and I was referring more towards Secretary Becerra doing a scheduling review because no one knows exactly when that's going to happen. So just imagine, say it's not going to happen by 4/20. He's already put that out on Twitter, but let's just say in August, for example, the review's done. It's been held under wraps. No one really knows when it's going to happen. And then boom, all of a sudden he comes out and they issued that recommendation in a press release that they recommend cannabis is now a Schedule 4 drug. All of a sudden, if no one knows about it, if no one front runs the news, the market would just, probably double overnight or more. I mean, it would just be such a bombshell.
Why rescheduling? Like, I would honestly probably sell into that rally.
What do you mean?
I mean, I'm literally not doing anything until there's financial reform, until you see SAFE 280 that's actually implemented and done. I think descheduling and rescheduling is a good headline, but I mean, where do we go from there?
Yeah,
into just more uncertainty around these companies need 280 gone so they can increase their profitability, which will then increase their investment dollars.
Well, that's where
increase their
valuations
valuations. Oh, so you think it's going to happen concurrently with the rescheduling?
Well, the rescheduling has to go to Schedule 3 or below to do away with 280E. As long as it's Schedule 1 or 2, 280E is going to be on the books by regulation, right? So it's got to go to Schedule 3 or more for that to happen. However, no one knows when that review is going to come. And then again, even if it's a favorable review, the DEA still has to implement it, right? So there's still hurdles, like you say, right? It could easily, what happens if the DEA says, fuck it, and we don't take it up?
But to Matt Hawkins' point last week is in order for 280E to go away, like that's a lot of tax revenue gone from the government, there's going to have to be some sort of new tax implication put into play, because if you're taking money away, there's got to be an opportunity for them to obviously make up for that loss. What that is, who knows? But
maybe tax it like alcohol or cigarettes. Don't kneecap the companies. I mean, AB InBev and Constellation make a lot of money. I look at their earnings report every quarter. So the cigarette companies make plenty of money without getting kneecapped after the fact by something like 280.
Agreed.
And you know what? They should honestly look at it as not, I mean, that's a short-term way to look at it. They shouldn't look at it as just like, what revenue are we dismissing now? They should look at it as what is the long-term revenue, because if 280E goes away, then thousands or tens of thousands of jobs will be created, maybe hundreds of thousands, and then there'll be more revenue generated because the industry will get much bigger, right? So then how do we supplement what we're getting now with like some sort of new tax that's not as punitive and make the industry grow a lot larger so we have a bigger piece of the pie, right? That's the way they should be looking at it. Because
they're worried about money laundering, and I think it's quite honestly macro events that are beyond our control, which is what some of the stuff was talked about with social equity last week. We talked about potential lawsuits the government could be implementing. It's a shit show, like absolute shit show as to what's going on. You have publicly traded companies on one side that have invested millions of dollars on the business side. They're not being granted licenses, let's say, for example, in the state of New York. Meanwhile, people with criminal backgrounds are being granted licenses. And a lot of the talk is social reform, social equity. And I know it's a hot, touchy subject, but it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense at all.
I think it's complete bullshit. All of it. The entire social equity thing is bullshit. I would trade in a second all of the social equity programs, do away with them, take the people out of jail.
Yeah.
Like that are sitting there rotting for minor offenses.
Yeah.
Like empowering me, who's a past offender, sure. Like I probably don't know how to run the business. I probably don't have access to capital. Like there's a lot of variables that are going to go into that business, potentially faltering down the road. But I say slash social equity and get the people out of jail that are rotting in there whose families are at a complete disadvantage because they're sitting in jail. Like the economic empowerment of getting those people out is probably going to be a net benefit over what these social equity programs are pushing.
Yeah. I actually think that is the main reason why you have so many mixed signals as far as investing right now and why there's no new money involved. Like what you just said, I feel so drained just thinking about that, and I just want to walk away. Like, who wants to be part of something like that? In fact, Matt Hawkins was telling us he was at a bankruptcy convention last week speaking, and he was talking about cannabis. And when he exited off the stage, he overheard a table of lawyers saying, "Who invests in cannabis still?" Sorry, we lost him there.
So I'm not going to name names, but I actually received an email today from someone that I know that's going to Benzinga, and which will be there in April. But the email reads, this is the first line, and these guys don't specialize in this. Dear Anthony, our team is helping companies with debt refinancing and restructuring. That is their opening line, which leads me to believe that they are seeing a lot of carnage in the space, and these are venture guys.
Yeah.
These are guys that were raising equity, and these are guys that were raising venture capital for cannabis companies, and now they're a restructuring firm and refinancing debt. That doesn't really give me too much positive outlook on where we're going outside of, let's say, the tier one capitalized companies.
Yeah. I will say, I wanted to bring this chart up, see if you guys are surprised by this, but on the public equity side, Tilt Holdings is actually performing better than any cannabis stock since January 1st. Your top 5, Tilt Holdings, the parent company, MedMen, Glasshouse Brands, and C21 Investments. No tier 1 MSOs, needless to say. Those are way, way down. But times have changed. As I said last week, when the three of us were at Encore at MJ Biz in 2021, having some nice smoked salmon sandwiches, we were thinking of, should we get into Air Wellness at $29, and here it is, a penny stock. Insane.
And they've got $330 million worth of debt on their balance sheet.
Yeah, debt cliffs.
What do you do with that? Like,
what do you do with that?
What I love about Tilt, and I haven't looked at them. See, okay, so Tilt has Jupiter. Jupiter were one of the first vape brands, vape infrastructure brands that I met in the space. Their shit is amazing. Like all of their batteries, all of their hardware. Jupiter's a picks and shovels play. And when Tilt picked up Jupiter, I was like, that is going to be a recipe to win because everyone needs their hardware. They're in a ton of markets, and the guys actually were building a quality product. And I can guarantee you that Jupiter is a very profitable segment of the Tilt business and of the Tilt portfolio.
It is indeed. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.